Hello! See, I'm scared of the microphone. That was really loud. Welcome to the epic highs and lows of D&D Villainy. How to make memorable villains for your table. Wow, I've talked way too much today. My name is Sloan. I have been a DM for about 10 years, and during the day, I am a human rights expert and advocate, so I do kind of know a thing or two about what makes a bad person.
Hello, I'm much louder than you. I'm so sorry. Hello, I am Liv. I am a multimedia designer at a university, which basically means I make cool educational videos and things and games, kind of like Brain Pop, sort of. And I have been a DM for about 7-ish years. Sloan got me into it. And because of the mix of things, I am really good at getting people to pay attention and stay engaged.
Unfortunately so. Before we start, there is a slight body horror warning in this. If that is going to be an issue for you, please let us know so we can also flag it for you. It's literally the very last slide in this entire presentation. It's drawn, it's not hyper realistic, but it is a depiction of an emaciated corpse. So again, if that's going to be an issue that's going to bother you, I want to be respectful of that and let you know ahead of time, but also I can't take it out, so sorry.
Close your eyes? I don't know.
No, be nice. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay, so to get us started, we're going to start off with media in general, and we're going to talk about what makes a great villain in general. We've broken this down into these basic categories. Motivation is why they do what they do. Righteousness and validation is why they feel valid and correct in doing what they're doing. Aesthetic, in the words of Megamind, is about presentation. It's the cool tower, it's the cape, it's everything else. It's what tends to draw people to villains in the first place. And then there's also the persistence, which tends to make most villains really memorable, is the fact that they're not going to stop for anything to get what they want. And lastly, this is optional, is that your villain might be sympathetic. There might be something about them that feels more human. They might be they might have good intentions, but really bad outcomes. And so those are the options that we've broken down.
So if you look on it is your right side of the screen, you will see a picture of 4 different villains. I'm going to start with the one who I'm almost certain no one in this room knows, is that funky guy with all the tattoos and white and who looks really cool. He's the definition of aesthetics. His name is Kilby. Sorry, I should introduce him first. His name is Kilby. Spoiler alert for a French cartoon called Hey, I need you to know we've presented this about 4 or 5 times, and this is the first time anyone's known the show, so thank you.
Made our day. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
I can't get started on the movie. Sorry. He's really cool. He has a really great motivation, a really great righteousness. He's from a race that reincarnates, but he is the only person from his race that ever retains his memories from the life before. And so he comes on the scene and he is watching his people try to rebuild and repopulate, and he's also watching them make the same mistakes they made the first time. He's this is how we got genocided. We can't do this again. Ooh. And so his solution to that is to commit genocide.
On someone else, naturally.
And so you're sitting there, you're oh, I almost get it, yes. And then you're no, not that.
Sorry, I have a joke. He doubled it and passed it on.
Stop it. Okay, keep going. But when you break them down into their pieces, it's very easy then to see why certain villains stand out. And in Kilby's case, the aesthetic draws you to him immediately. But then as you start learning about him and continue, it gets so much better and simultaneously so much worse. Similarly, I think most people in this room are familiar with Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. She's the definition of persistence. She's cruel. Her motivations and righteousness, honestly, I think if you never learned them, she would still be just as scary, just by virtue of how persistent she is. Once you learn more about her, I do personally think she's way cooler.
Yes.
I know.
Very tiny.
Similarly, Jinx Jinx is a very good example of a sympathetic villain. She is someone who has been traumatized and not treated well afterwards, and just continuously triggered and activated and led in the wrong direction, even while she is desperately clinging on to trying to like reclaim her life. I'm saying this in the context of season 1. I have not actually finished season 2 of Arcane. Just a disclaimer. And last but not least, we have Thistle from Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon, whichever one you know it by. I'm going to keep this a little light because I have read the manga, and that is primarily why they are on this PowerPoint. But even in the anime, they're nuts. It's so obvious they're nuts. But as you get further into their story, like especially in the manga, they become kind of sympathetic. You're sitting there and you're like, oh, you're still crazy. But that does make a lot more sense as to why. And they have a phenomenal aesthetic. And even without knowing what their motivation and righteousness is, their characterization and like the way they're presented draws you in and makes you want to continue to learn more about them.
Season 2 when?
Yeah. Soonish, I think.
Okay, so popular media though is different than D&D or TTRPGs or whatever it is you play, because it's an interactive medium. And so we've gone through and we've analyzed some villains that we've played and also some villains that we've like listened to in other actual plays, and we've broken them down into what we think are the main 6 pieces of what makes a very compelling and a very memorable villain.
So on the personality side, it's pretty similar. We have 2 of the same things, which is motivation and righteousness. The new one here down at the bottom is characterization, which is essentially the way you are delivering information about the character. We've like kind of classified direct and indirect characterization a little bit differently because of the interactive medium. So like you have the direct characterization, which is the things that they're doing, like the things that your character says, versus the indirect, which is like maybe what other NPCs say about them or the environment or something along those lines.
And the personality column is really about the character, and it is about how you want to build your character. The mechanics side of things is about you. It is about the DM, and it is about what you are bringing to the table. So first up is table presence, how you bring them to life, your body language, your tone, your accent. What are you doing to make them different from every other NPC that you play and to really drive home that they're a bad person? Second is ruthlessness, parentheses, and strategy. This is, again, you as the DM trying to instill the fear of God in your players, making it so that this villain is out for blood in whatever capacity that actually means for them. And last but not least is combat design. When you design a very cool and interesting combat and you execute it well, your players will remember it. From cool abilities in a unique stat block to interesting strategies that maybe aren't optimal but really work narratively, to even just a phenomenal battle map that gives a lot of opportunity for your players to be creative. Designing your combat with intent and making that something that you really want to focus on to make your villain memorable is going to land almost every time.
So we are going to share examples from some of our games. We are both DMs and we are both players. We play in each other's campaigns. We both have homebrew campaigns, which I guess mine is kind of the only one that needs like, oh no, yours is now too, like slight context. Okay. I can give the context when we get there, but the gist is that we have each of these characters is kind of an example of either personality or mechanics or a really like healthy blend of both. So we're trying to show you guys that you can mix and match different things to create a memorable villain. You don't have to nail every single category every single time.
For your sanity, please don't try to do that.
No, it takes a lot of work to do the whole thing, but like having kind of like a shorthand for thinking about it is really helpful when you're trying to make stuff. So I'm going first. This is Queen Arya Whitehorn, who's from my campaign. As you can see, this is a child. So I wanted to make my players fight each other rather than fight an actual villain. When they got onto this level, they started learning that there was some sort of disaster that had happened here. and that there was a queen who had mutilated the god of this kingdom and created a all like powerful crown out of it. And she had altered reality. She made the sun disappear. She had absolutely flooded her kingdom so no one could leave. And once they started getting closer to the castle, they started discovering that she was turning her own people into instruments. They were just slowly growing like pipes and like becoming piano keys and different things like that. And it was a horrible, slow, painful death. And so the party was like, oh my God, this lady is insane. We need to save her and we need to stop what's going on here. And so by characterizing her through all of these actions, like these indirect things from the rest of the world, I got my party very unified in hating her and being like, she needs to go down. She's done horrible things to her people. And when they got there, I had played with their expectations. I decided to play with their expectations. They found out that the queen was actually, the current queen was the daughter of the previous queen. She had inherited this item. She did not know how to use it, and it was slowly driving her insane. And it was a scared child who had the power of a god. And that motivation and that righteousness, when it was revealed to the party of that she was terrified and not in control of her environment, or really even her actions to an extent, made her instantly sympathetic and made the party just dissolve into conflict, because half my party still wanted to kill the child. And the other, one of my players was like, hey guys, that's a child. And so by playing with your players' like expectations and by adding that sympathetic element to a villain, you can shift the conflict away from just combat. Because when I made Arya, I was a fairly new DM and I was really scared of combat. But I felt very strong in my characterization and ability to, like give information throughout the level and teach my characters about teach my players about a character, only to then subvert all of those expectations.
This literally made us fight with each other on New Year's Eve for, I think, 2 hours. And by we, I mean me and then everyone else. Because we were playing this game and Mo knew exactly, Liv, however you introduced yourself, knows exactly who's in her party. She knew that there was one person minimum who was going to go, no, that's a 12-year-old. You can't just kill her. And it worked. We took a bathroom break about 15 minutes before midnight, and I was still yelling at my friend who was in the bathroom going, we are not killing the child. You can't do that. And it's been, I don't know, I'm going to say like 4 or 5 years, and we actually still talk about it. My friend is still mad because we didn't end up killing the child. And it was a complete accident. And she,
Thank you.
No, I didn't win. Something else happened. No. I won by default, not through like strength of argument. That's what I'm
Fair
saying.
enough.
But
You argue with divine providence.
exactly. But it was really effective because she knew exactly who was in her party. We were in absolute lockstep with each other until we got there. And then it was the moment that we had to make a decision. We had to make action. And we'd already aligned with someone who was like, we're killing the queen, regardless of what she says or what she does. So we had an ally who's like, I'm killing the child. 2 people in the party who were like, I don't really care, whatever gets me out of here. And then one person was like, it's a 12-year-old, what do you mean? And it really did create that kind of conflict that I think if we were a different party might have actually turned into, well, we also don't do PvP at our table, but like, it was that kind of intensity. It was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. And to your point, I did technically win.
That is true. And if you've come to this panel before, you have definitely seen Arya probably every time, just because she is really accessible. Like if you're not comfortable with combat, if you're not comfortable with table presence, like you can do a lot to still create conflict for your party. As you are learning more about how to like be confident as a DM and different things. So that's what I did with Arya.
Ready?
So next, this is my character Ravenna. I wanted to, with Ravenna, create the kind of villain who feels like they are all-knowing. They have all of the information. They have a network everywhere. They are like 5 steps ahead of the party all the time. and they are terrifying. That is the kind of villain that I really wanted to make for this level, which was a challenge. It ended up becoming, for me, like a balancing act of how do I give my players information? How do I make sure I've given them information? And then how do I then, this is the key part, enact consequences when they ignore it. And so here, like with Ravenna, I made it so I keyed in on ruthlessness in my strategy, not even hers. Is I was making sure, I was making sure, I was keeping track of all of the information that I was giving to my players and signposting things they needed to be worried about. So for example, and you guys are getting kind of a spoiler on this one, Ravenna is a shapeshifter. She can look like anyone. The way that I signaled this to the party is that one party member knew her before they started this whole adventure. They saw her previously in a vision, and she was like, oh my god, I know her. She's still just as brutal and violent like all these other things. When they got to the city, they heard about this person who has been in power for 15 something years, but no one knows what she looks like or anything about her. Kind of weird. They all clocked it. They were like, that doesn't seem very realistic. Third thing was that when they actually met this character in person, my player who knew her from before, she looked completely different. Physically, she was a different height, she had a different build, she had different hair, all of these different things. And my player was like, that's weird. Why doesn't she look like what I knew her as? And I didn't give an explanation. The party clocked it. They commented on it. I very specifically gave them 3 ways that they had received this information. I made sure. And so when I essentially orchestrated and took advantage of the party splitting up, I infiltrated them. One of the party members got kidnapped, I replaced her, and they did not question why she just conveniently showed up again. They were just like, yeah, okay, there's our party member. We just got attacked in the streets, but also, neat, we're all together again. They just moved on. And I was fully planning on acting on those consequences and being like, I'm gonna kill someone, in their sleep if they don't act on this. And so it's by setting up those consequences and really following through as a DM that you can get that sense of urgency and power and control. And also by just, again, being very careful about signposting and making sure that once you spring a consequence on your party, they're not going to sit there and be like, how the hell were we supposed to know that was going to happen? What you want is them to go, oh, shit. You want that moment of reflection where they're like, hold on. Sorry, I don't know if you were here for this disclaimer. We were going to try and save questions till the end. No, you're so okay. Thank you.
Unless it is very crucial to your understanding. If you are deeply confused, please ask, but this is a very tight panel. Oh, is it still my turn? Okay. Also, I do need to defend my honor. Sloan, clocked it. I said, no, this is wrong. We need to look at this. Hey, guys, why are we not looking at this? Hey, can we go over here? And they all went, that's fine. And we were split up when said party member was kidnapped and came back. And I was watching it happen. And I went, you're not going to question that? You're not going to question that? So I spent a lot of time on this level going, you know what? I can't, in character, fix this. So instead, I'm going to, in character, make it a little bit worse for everyone and really lean into the fact that, my character can't fix it. The rest of the party doesn't seem to want to fix it. Let's at least have fun while we're losing. And that's part of what made it very fun for me, is I could see what Liv was doing. I could see how she was setting up the structure, and I could see all the ways everyone else I was playing with was missing or ignoring. Both happened. The clues that were being put down. And after a certain point, there's only so much you as an individual can do. So instead, I leaned in. I was like, yeah, you know what? They said that this is the person it's supposed to be. That's totally the person it's supposed to be. I also have a -1 in wisdom, so what am I supposed to know? And it really does make it very fun, though, especially if you, the player, can see it. And then your character is an idiot. There's a sense of, I'm going to call it dramatic irony, though that's not really quite what it is, that I find just absolutely enjoyable.
Last but not least, from my examples, I have Gareth Knox. Gareth came on the scene at the exact same time as Ravenna. I was really being evil on this level and just throwing everything at them. And Gareth is specifically she is both a player-specific antagonist and a character-specific antagonist. So she was not the big bad on this level at all. She was essentially a side quest, but a really dramatic side quest. And the thing about Gareth is that I designed her characterization and her motivation and her righteousness were all designed to directly oppose the character I was targeting, which was Sloane's character. Sloane's character is like a very classic hero kind of character. She's a child also, and was inspired by her parents and wants to be like the greatest hero that anyone's ever seen.
Into the mic, not at me.
My bad. And I wanted to play with that idea of like, oh, her parents were these famous people. They've definitely caused some problems along the way. So Gareth is someone who, like, spoiler alert, had her entire life ruined by my player's parents. And Gareth knew this. Corey had no idea. So all of her characterization was designed to kind of like communicate a threat in a way, but also at the same time to draw Corey in, because Corey is her player character, by the way. Because she had information, and so it was just trying to get the character to come in and be interested, and only to find out that this like issue that Gareth had with Corey's parents was not only extremely valid, but like something Corey could never fix.
Because she hasn't said it, the issue here is that Corey's parents are the reason that she is now a lycanthrope. And that's a very big thing for your character not to know, and just have someone being like, yeah, I hate your parents, and you don't think it's valid beef. You're like, well, I, the character, don't know what could have happened. Me, the player, don't know what could have happened, and then my character sure as hell doesn't know what happened. And so I'm just like, I think you're just playing with me. She was not playing with me.
No, the entire time. Sloane was like, I don't know what her problem is, but I'm sure she's just jealous or something. Yeah, Corey, not Sloane, was like, I'm sure she's just jealous or something along those lines. And then when she found out that, no, my parents, like, because they were too morally upstanding in a way and, like, too strict, had gotten her turned into a lycanthrope and completely ruined her life.
Next.
Yes, please. Which leads into the second half of this, which is the mechanics side. I did get over my fear of combat eventually. Still working on it, though. And so this is the side that was targeted towards Sloane, the player. Sloane is like an Australian Shepherd. She needs interesting things going on. She needs like challenging combat. She really likes to have to come up with strategy in order to make things happen. And so I wanted to challenge Sloane in that way and create a one-on-one combat with her, with a very over-leveled enemy, that would force her to use every single one of her resources. And so part of that is like my table presence was designed to communicate danger to Sloane, not to Corey. Sloane knew that Gareth was bad news just from the way that I was interacting and trying to make Sloane uncomfortable every time we were RPing. Like, Sloane would be talking.
Succeeding.
Sloane would be talking, and I'd just be staring at her and no one else. There were just like little things that I was doing to try and make sure that Sloane knew the threat was there, so that when I jumped her the second she was alone, she wasn't surprised. She was just like, oh my God, really? And this combat, I specifically chose an environment where Sloane might be able to like get some help. So it wasn't a completely impossible fight, which was the point. It was just a very wildly unfair fight, to the point that Sloane had to use every single resource she had at her disposal and made some incredibly creative decisions.
I really loved this, and what's really important to know is no one else at this table would have loved this. I actually think a couple of them would have been like, I cannot believe you have done this to me, I'm quitting. She really did do a fantastic job. I normally can see combat coming from a mile away. I have a strategy picked out. I figured out like, well, it's probably this, we're gonna do this, like maybe I can do this. And then in combat, while everyone else is taking their 5-minute turns, I'm like thinking about what's going on. And then I'm really kind of frustrated and bored. So sorry, Rachel, not to like, but when this happened, I didn't have time to prepare. I didn't have time to strategize or think about it. I actually didn't even know it was gonna happen. And then I was there and I was frazzled. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool, but why would you do this to me right now? And it really needs to be tailored to your player though, because The environment was in a city center. Corey specifically does have spells that are loud. It's normally to my team's detriment that she's being loud, and in this case, the point of using, I can't even remember what it's called, I think it's Thunderwave, was to get that 300-foot boom, not to push Gareth away. That wasn't going to work. She's a werebear. She has like a strength of like 20 or whatever. I wasn't winning that. And it allowed for really cool strategies that I don't normally get to do in combat. In addition to, I'm still processing the fact it was valid beef. It was crazy. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. And if you have players at your table that you can really tailor your antagonists to, they will love it. You just have to pick the right pieces and really lean in for them. Yes.
And with that, we transition to Sloane's sections. Oh, she's standing.
I do stand up when I present because otherwise I don't project well enough. And I'm talking for a while here. First of all, I would like to apologize to everyone in this room because this is the first year I do not have the Bardy Boys in this presentation. It's 6 bards. They look like real famous people. And the art is hilarious, but unfortunately, I have 2 serious villains for you this time. First up, we have the Hunt. They are these big, mean, evil men. They are abducting fae women and abusing them and making them their wives. They're really bad people, and that's like very apparent from the beginning. But what makes the Hunt stand out was the fact that my players knew they were bad news, knew that they were ruthless, knew that if they went toe-to-toe with the Hunt, they were probably at a severe disadvantage. And so when they finally went through this entire arc and they were finding out just how horrible these guys were, they decided it was something they couldn't really stand for. They had to do something about it because otherwise they were going to get stuck in the middle of it. And I did. I made a very difficult combat. They had a stat block that was probably a little too high for my players, but also the way I was playing them in like the ruthlessness department is there were disadvantages. I was making sure my rogue was not running away to hide and get sneak attack. I was using every single checkbox in the action economy. Action, movement, bonus action, reaction. If my players made a mistake, I was ready and waiting to use any of those moves. But I didn't want to kill them, because if you have like 7, 8, 9, 10 villains on the scene, first of all, that's really boring. It's miserable to play all at once. It's not fun for anyone. And your players are going to lose just by virtue of the action economy not being in their favor. That's not a fun combat. Nobody wants that. And so this combat was designed to be in waves. Not one huntsman goes down, round starts, and a new one pops on the scene, so there's always about 3 of them. It was time-based. Every 2 rounds, a new huntsman was coming on the scene. So my players were going through this combat, realizing how it was structured. They first thought it was death-based because they managed to kill a huntsman within the first 2 rounds. But when they didn't do that by round 4, and a 4th one came on the scene, they suddenly knew, like, oh, I need to lock in. I need to really get it together. This is not a fight that Sloane is going to let us win. This is a fight Sloane is giving us a chance at. We have to work together, we have to be above board, and we need to be working on this. Otherwise, this combat's gonna kill us.
Genuinely, I don't think I've ever like sweat that much during a combat in my life. It was also one of the only combats I've ever been in where like every single player was paying attention the entire time. No one was on their phone. No one was like checking Instagram or anything like that. Like we were all locked in because of how difficult the combat was, because as soon as we realized what the actual structure was, oh, that's the game. Like we have to stay ahead of them, and we also have to manage our resources well enough that we can still defeat the leader of the Hunt when he eventually shows up on the scene. Like it became so interesting to coordinate with every other player and to figure out like how are we going to strategize and get around this? How are we going to like stay alive for long enough? How are we going to keep our like most damaging spells and resources available to take down the biggest bad when he finally shows up? It was really fun. It's one of my favorite combats I've ever done.
Up next, if you actually have ever been to this panel before, you will realize that this beautiful pink background is normally reserved for some bastard named Roran Kriska. They are not on here because I've created a villain that my players actually hate more. I'm moving up in the world. So this is Felix Minet. And Felix only makes sense in the context that they exist in. So I am going to have to give you a decent amount of background for this. In the campaign that Felix is from, I have a group of up-and-coming political leaders called Hellwind Turns. It is a joke on the concept of hill turns here in DC. And most of these Hellwind Turns are just like mean, condescending, rude, like kind of exactly who you expect like a 25-year-old in politics to be. Except for Felix. Felix is this charming, funny, lackadaisical person who, when the party talks to them for the first time, just kind of laughs and goes, "Oh my God, no, darling. I only pick fights I know I can win. You don't have to apologize for that. I didn't want that." Or if someone's like, "Hey, don't you have work to do?" Oh, sorry, I put the mic down. "Hey, don't you have work to do?" And they're like, "Mark, oh my God, no, darling. Why would I do that? That's for people who care." And they're putting forward this like, just, oh my God, what's the word? I don't know. I'm going to go with lackadaisical again. This very lackadaisical attitude of someone who's dumb and ditzy and beautiful. And their table presence reinforces that. Like, they are always leaning forward. They are always laughing. I am reaching out and touching people. Even if I'm playing on Skype, like I'm reaching out towards the screen a little bit. It's a little awkward when I'm playing it, but I know it comes across correctly. But so my players bought into this. This was the concept that they had of this character. So when they go into this town and they see there's a group of Hellwind Turns here, they don't think anything of Felix. They're like, "Oh, Felix is just here. Great. The other two are the threat." And so they're investigating, they're looking, they're trying to figure out what exactly these Hellwind Turns are doing. And in the process, they find out that Felix is a conniving little bitch. They are sleeping around with town leaders. They are siphoning away state secrets. They are accidentally breaking key security features in the city because, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm just such a klutz. I just can't help it. And the players then had to, their goal was, they couldn't kill Felix. That would look really bad. Oh my God. Everybody loves Felix. But they needed to break that perception of Felix, that they are just this like dumb, pretty person who should just get to lounge around and look beautiful. And that's where what makes Felix truly hateable comes in, is the ruthlessness. Felix and I, we're not about to let my players win. Every single social situation they were in was always spun in Felix's favor. So my players might succeed on a roll. They might get a 25, they might get a 30, but they succeed at that. That does not mean they get to win the interaction. The best example I have is they got so irritated with Felix that they said, "I want to poison them." And I said, "That's great. You know what? One of you is explicitly good at this. Go ahead and make me a poison." I got a 25. Fantastic. You know what? Just tell me what the poison does. That's fine. I want them to get violently ill in public. Great. We can do that. You do still have to get them to drink it. Okay. They decided to sacrifice one of their other party members, like Princess Bride style. Put it in 2 cups, went and like gave it to them. They rightfully saw through it, switched the cups, Princess Bride style, still lost, did get violently ill in public.
Instantly. Sorry. Important qualifier. It was instant.
You're really satisfied about that still, huh?
I still love that one.
And then like they went away, like they considered that a win. They were like, "Yes, we got him." Until the next day when they're walking around town and Felix is dramatically slumped over on a table, hair disheveled, shirt unbuttoned just a little too far, profusely apologizing to the people in the town, going, "I'm just so sorry. I don't know what happened. Well, I do. The food here doesn't sit well with me, but I know what the reputation is from the people of where I'm from, and I didn't want to come across like that, and I should have, and I'm sorry." And suddenly they are a victim, and they are sympathetic, and they are trying to be better than the stereotype of like where they're from. And that's not embarrassing. That's not, "Oh, you couldn't have gotten it together." That's not, "Oh, you were too drunk in public." That's none of the things that the party was hoping this would come across as. And clearly, Felix wasn't fazed. They were playing it up, they were trying to get sympathy, and they were succeeding. And that pissed my players off to the point that they started doing, I wouldn't say stupid because it worked, but I definitely wouldn't have spent some of the high-level spells they spent on this.
We did. It was a little stupid. We went a little insane trying to make sure we could actually beat Felix. Like, I really think it was the most motivated we've ever been in like a social deception situation. Because most of our party is not really big on the whole social deception thing. They're like, hey, we're going to go kill this guy. And I'm like, okay, fine. We got here and we're like, we have to make them embarrassed. Like, we have to make the people in this town hate them. And that was our goal, was to just like prove that their personality behind all of this like two-facedness was that they were a terrible, conniving little bastard. And we were trying to get everyone else to see it. And it just like Sloane's ruthlessness in not letting us have just like an easy win made us do some insane things, such as using Dimension Door to go into their room so we could plant some evidence to frame them for arson, and then Dimension Dooring out, and then go to setting the town that we're in to save on fire. It worked, but that is what we had to do to make it work.
I would also like to note, just because I thought it was really funny and impressive, they did use illusory script, which is a spell I've not really ever seen or conceptualized in like an offensive manner. And because they're extra petty, when they wrote out this whole like fake journal, supposedly like framing Felix for like writing down state secrets and like planning for battle and like how to sabotage the town, you can pick who can see the truth. And so they picked Felix and one of the other Helminturns to be able to see that it's a fake journal, and everyone else in the world, including the rest of the party, was like, no, that's Felix's handwriting. What are you talking about?
It was really good. It was so satisfying. Like, I've genuinely, it was so much fun. And like, I absolutely, Felix drives me insane, but I want them to show up again because it is so much fun just going up against them and trying to find ways to outsmart them and outmaneuver. And like, it, again, we're a pretty risk averse party. We generally don't do something unless we're pretty confident that we can make it happen. I went completely unarmed into a room with Felix and another enemy and just like pretty much tried to lie to their faces and failed. I had no backup plan. I was just like, I'm going to try this. We're going to see what happens. Like, it was great. It was really fun.
But to like kind of put a nice little neat bow on it, Felix is a very good example of how to create someone your players love to hate, because they are so nice and they are so friendly and they are so charming, and your players know that that's not true and they just can't prove it. And it makes that hatred just ride, especially if they don't get to kill them, because now they know that Felix is alive in the world somewhere, probably just doing the same thing elsewhere, and they can't do anything about it.
One day, though. One day, Felix.
Sorry,
I'm gonna get them.
And then last but not least, we have Cardis Brown Barrel. This is, again, I'm actually going to give the body horror warning now. This is the second to last slide in this presentation that has art on it. The next slide is the one with the emaciated like drawing of a corpse. That's going to bother you. I'm so sorry. I can't take it out. I don't know what to do. Sorry. But Cardis Brown Barrel stands out because of his motivation and righteousness, at least in my personal opinion, because he's just a crazy little guy. And I love my crazy little man. When you read this of, I nearly lost the love of my life, I will not let another traveler take her from me, all travelers are selfish creatures, only capable of harm, they deserve to die. His internal logic, maybe I don't agree with it, but it does make some sense. But my players didn't get to learn this from Cardis. They learned it from Cardis's house, which was probably one of the most disgusting and like morbid things I've ever created. From a room filled with clothes from every traveler he's ever killed, so full that you actually can't open the door all the way, to scribbled letters scattered across the floor, hinting at something horrible that has happened as he apologizes desperately across the page, citing his love for some person named Callie, claiming that Damien deserved it. Clearly something has happened here, and he is not well about it. But as they go further and further into this house, not only are there undead creatures here, which is already really questionable, but they go further and there's a rotted corpse pinned to the wall, framed, with a little museum plaque that says, "Here lies Damien Lloyd." Yeah, you want to go?
Really important detail that I asked about that corpse. I was like, hey man, it's a skeleton. Was it always a skeleton? Does it look like it was a skeleton when it was put up? And she was like, no, there's a big stain. And I was like, that's disgusting.
But so my players were learning about Cardis and his insanity and like what he kind of understood to be like his motivation and righteousness just from his house. And so through this environmental storytelling and an indirect characterization, my players were getting a very good sense of who they were about to encounter. But sorry, that was really
I don't know
loud.
if any of you guys heard that, but that was funny.
Hold on, I have to find it again. They were getting a very good sense of who they were about to encounter, but they had only ever figured it out from his house. And so there were some misconceptions. There was kind of a sense of curiosity of like, is this really who I'm about to encounter? Like, who is he in actuality? And the unfortunate news for them was exactly what I told them. His table presence and his ruthlessness were completely in line with his absolutely insane motivation and righteousness. I wanted to make a insane little guy. And so his table presence was made to be an insane little guy. He did not make eye contact. If I was looking in the correct direction of the person I was supposed to be responding to, it was a 1,000-yard stare. There was not a thought behind those eyes. And there was no like niceties. He said very threatening things very calmly. It is also worth noting that when they walked into the room, he was talking to the corpse like it was a real person. And then what really sold it in the combat, though, was the ruthlessness completely lining up with the motivation and righteousness. Cardis had a strategy, and his strategy was, I'm going to kill you because one of my players decided, he's in love with this person. I found a portrait of this person. Let's go into this room disguised as the love of his life. And instead, Cardis said, I can't believe you. Die. And that was the entire strategy for the combat. It wasn't, I'm going to kill this entire party. It was, Cardis was not going to rest until this one bastard was dead. And so there was the effort to counterspell my wizard, because I just really wanted to frustrate her, to be completely honest.
It worked.
But also, my other two players then, who weren't being targeted in any capacity, had an instant sense of urgency for them and their characters, because they had to take Cardis down before Cardis took the bard down. There was only enough, they only had as much time as Graham had hit points left, and Cardis made it very clear he was pulling out all the stops to get Graham on the ground and dead. And because that lined up perfectly with the motivation and the righteousness, Cardis's, I'm going to say like book was open and shut. He was introduced as a crazy little man. Everything about his house said he was a crazy little man. And then once they got there and saw just how poorly he was doing, and then he started targeting them based on that same internal logic of, this is the love of my life, you will not touch her. He was exactly what it said he was going to be, and it hit on every single point that they actually still talk about him.
I do. I had to convince Sloan to put Cardis on this presentation because I love Cardis. He is truly just a fucked up little guy. And like, first, I'm just incredibly impressed still that Sloan managed to make a Minnesotan accent sound threatening. Because that's my favorite fact about Cardis, is that he had a very soft Minnesotan accent, and it was terrifying. And I've never been as scared of a Minnesotan accent before, so that was a new experience for me. But the other part of it is like going through his house, we had the sense of like mystery of like, who is this man? Why is he here? What has he done? But we also, maybe a little bit delusionally, as the party saw that evidence that he had someone he loved, and we're like, maybe there's still a human in there. Maybe there's someone we can talk to, and like maybe we can connect with that emotion. So like we collected a portrait of Callie, and our bard disguised himself as Callie. And then we got there, and Callie was a corpse with a tree growing through here that Cardis was talking to. It went so bad. And it was that exact moment of, oh, we thought like his love might actually be the one sane thing about him. And his version of love was just as insane as everything else, that we were like, oh, we've made a mistake. Like, there is absolutely no reasoning with this man, and now we've pissed him off, and we're stuck in the same room as him. And even though, like, there wasn't, like, anything particularly crazy going on with his stat block or the combat or anything like that, like, it just made it so scary and tense, because of all of that buildup and because we just suddenly had so much fear of like, oh my God, we're stuck with him. What's he gonna do? And then, of course, Sloan was still like talking in character during the combat and just like muttering things. Really,
That is my favorite thing to do, by the way. If you really want to make someone seem insane, just have them talk during combat. Because why would you do that?
It works really, really well. It's very quite alarming.
Yeah, my bottom line with Cardis, though, really is lean in, girly. If you want to go for an insane little guy, make him absolutely insane. You have one concept, make that his whole thing, and it will land. You just have to be consistent about it throughout. With that, this might actually be the fastest we have ever gone through this panel. We have 15 minutes left if there are any questions, comments, anything that wants to happen or anyone wants to say. Yeah, go ahead. The Minnesotan accent? So I actually did mention this during the workshop that we ran early with the Pathfinder department. I have high recommendations for a like activation phrase. And for a Minnesotan accent, for me at least, it is, oh gosh. You know, I did spend about an hour and 45 minutes outside the National Cathedral one day just like practicing. Had a 3-minute linguistic video that I just played on repeat until I could figure it out. I also spent about 15 minutes trying to say the word boat. Nope, hold on, I lost it. Oh gosh, boat. There we go.
The activation phrase really works.
She gets to sit next to me even when we play like on video because we live together, and she'll just get to hear me very quietly under my breath go, oh gosh, before I start talking pretty much every time.
It actually somehow made Cardis a little scarier because like we were just in there, like this horrible scene was in front of us and I just hear it quiet, oh gosh, and then he says scary stuff and I was like, what is going on? It was great. It was really fun.
Anything else? You don't have to, but yes.
Correct.
So
PC.
the question real quick. Wait, can I repeat the question real quick?
Yes.
So the question real quick was with Ravenna, one of our party members got replaced with a shapeshifter and it was still a PC. And so how did we execute that and how did that work with our party like supposedly not noticing?
You may not have heard my evil little chuckle. But basically I coordinated ahead of time with my player. So I texted her and I said, hey, can I kidnap you? And then can I replace you and have you play yourself but fake? And so that's what I did. She disappeared off of the scene and then, conveniently showed back up where the rest of the party was, and my player picked up playing as her but just a little off. So like my instructions to my player were, you have like the knowledge of most of like your character's surface things, but like you don't really have any deeper than that. And you have a specific goal, which is trying to get as much information out of the party as possible while you are here. And so that's what my player was playing towards. And what was fun is when my shapeshifter was found out, is my player started panicking a little bit because the party was bringing out some hard questions, and then I just suddenly took over with their dialogue. And the whole party was like...
I was leaning into the microphone going, I told you so. You needed to ask questions.
Sloan was going
It
feral.
took one question. That's all it took. One difficult question.
And I also, fun fact, had that like planned for 3 months before it actually happened. So my player was just sitting on that for like 3 months and was like, so are you still kidnapping me? And I was like, yeah, hold on, just wait. You're gonna be okay. We also did a separate session where we played out like one-on-one what happened while she was kidnapped. So we had that established as well. Everybody got like fun little adventures while they were off on their own. She got kidnapped. Corey got mauled. Like, it was good. Oh yeah, I forgot that detail entirely. I turned Corey into a werebear. So that's fun.
Yeah, she rolled a 28, and even with shield, it was like a 26, I think. That was heartbreaking.
Broke through immediately, and she failed at her wisdom save.
First time.
It was great. First attack in that entire fight between Gareth and Corey. It was awesome. Okay, sorry, carry on. You don't have to have other questions. It's totally fine, but if you do, we won't bite.
It can also be a little specific. I know that D&D and TTRPGs in general are kind of hard to describe or ask questions about in a vacuum. We just don't want it to turn into like an individual, like let's workshop it one-on-one with you and then an entire audience. Yes?
Yeah. What kind of things do you keep in mind when you build like combat around these characters to make it like a memorable interaction?
Wait, can I repeat the question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
They asked what kind of things do you do around combat to like keep it interactive and keep your players interested, right? Okay.
For me, I always have a goal when I'm designing my combat. If it's either, do I want this one player to be really frustrated? Am I trying to genuinely kill everyone? Like, what is my design philosophy? Do I want there to be an alternative win condition? That the thing they are fighting is not actually the thing they need to do to get out of there. And shaking it up and making it like really make sense in the narrative of what you're working on, I find makes it way easier to figure out what the layout's gonna be, how you can give them advantages and how you can give them disadvantages if they don't play it right. And really also like advertise that while you're playing it. If, for example, their mission is, hey, these people have been kidnapped, I need you to go retrieve them. And then they get to a battlefield where these people are being like transformed in the middle of like a magic circle. The goal there is not to kill the people transforming them inherently. It's to get those people out of there before they are transformed. You have to communicate that, but when it's not exactly just, I hit it, it hits me, I hit it, it hits me, and you're looking for ways to shake that up, even if it's just literally altitude in your battle map, you give your players a lot of fun things to play with suddenly. I saw you first.
When you're designing villains, do you generally have like a session length of like how many sessions you want this person to be around? Or do you just kind of generate a character and then it could be a really quick act of 3 different sessions, or oh, this ends up being a campaign? Like, what is your approach for when you're writing?
That's a good question. Did everyone hear that, or do we need to repeat that? Good talk.
Okay, so I will say I run my campaign on little like arcs, essentially, just like in animes. Is I'm like, okay, I want this specific arc to be playing out. This is the villain of this arc, and this is like the theme that I'm wanting to explore here. And so like when I made Ravenna, I had a very clear like storyline involved that I wanted to do across that like arc. And so the specific length, not planned out at all. I'm really a vibes-based DM in terms of the length of time things take. So that level, like that arc ended up taking a really long time just because of how complicated the information network and like the spying and all that kind of stuff was in the city. I've lost track of the original question, but it was like,
How long?
When you're designing villains, do you generally associate like how long it takes to defeat them or the setup surrounding defeating them? Or do you kind of build the character and then however it falls, it could be 3 sessions, it could be 50?
I build the character with like an effect on the players I want to have. And so it stops when I have that effect. Is essentially what I do.
I'm a little bit different. For me, I had to learn to give up on an expected timeline. That just never happened. I'd be like, oh, this will be a nice 3-session villain. And then 8 sessions later, I was like, man, they're still here. But for me, especially now learning, like having a better sense of how my players play, how I like to play, so on and so forth, I have certain like plot beats I want to hit. And that doesn't mean like I'm forcing them to hit them. If the dice roll and it just completely throws what I have out the window, that's fine. But there are still like certain points I want to hit to make it narratively sound. And if it's not narratively sound before you get to the end, then I'm probably not going to let it be the end. Because, I mean, I guess it's kind of similar to an effect, but like I want them to come across and make sense and not just be, yeah, there's a thief in the middle of the woods for some reason. Yeah, you kill him? Great.
I believe there was someone over here who had a question. Do you still have your question? That's so real, and I'm so sorry. What's up?
What would you say would be the most common like mistakes you think people would make making a villain? Or like if you were getting started, what do you think the most common?
Can I answer this immediately?
Oh yeah, go for it.
If you didn't hear that, the question was, what is the easiest mistake or most common mistake that someone could fall into doing this? And my answer is getting too into the details. It does not matter that much. I know it feels like it does. It doesn't. You do not need to know their favorite color. You do not need to know their pizza order. You do not need to know their great-great-great-great-grandmother's maiden name. It's not that important. You need to understand your villain and how your villain makes sense. And if it just so happens that their ancestry is important, fine. But you do not need to flesh them out like they are the love of your life. They are meant to die. And you need to kind of treat them as such. Otherwise, you are going to hold on to them too much. You are going to want them to stay alive. And then instead of telling a story and playing a game with your players, you will be trying to keep your favorite little guy alive when, again, they're designed to die.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to my design philosophy with villains of like I'm designing for an impact on the players. Is that I'm not making my villain to stick around at all. I'm wanting to achieve like kind of a specific effect, and like impart my players with some sort of knowledge and like contribute to their character arcs in a specific way. And so if you're designing towards a goal like that, you're not going to get as lost in the details because you're not going to be like, oh, I wonder how I'm going to explain their entire motivation to the party. Their motivation is just going to be in their actions. And it doesn't really matter if your party actually figures it out concretely or not. It just matters that they feel it.
Yes.
Do you design your villains at a specific level in comparison to your players, or does it just depend on the player? I know the kid is probably like improving the adults, but like everybody else.
Do you want to repeat the question?
They were asking, do you design your villains at a specific level? Like, are they in like comparison or parallel to their players, or do you just kind of have a set goal? Is that a faithful recreation? Okay, just. Sorry.
I won't lie. Sometimes it, like Liv said, it's kind of vibes based. I often introduce my villains long before they have a stat block.
Same.
Sometimes that's to my detriment. Sometimes my players are like, can I punch him? And I'm like, no. No, you cannot. Thank you for playing, no. But generally, I try to get a sense for how my players are playing in that session, because also I feel like most tables have good seasons and bad seasons, and seasons where people really remember everything, and seasons where people are like, oh my god, did we play in December? I don't think so. I don't even remember when we last played. And then you might have given them some great piece of information that they just don't remember and won't ask about, and you won't know that they don't know. So I kind of try to tailor it a bit more to how they're playing. I do still try to use challenge ratings to an extent of like, this is the amount of damage I want to do, this is how hard I want them to be to kill, but at the end of the day, unless it's like the hunt or I'm going in with like an intent of, this is a scary guy, you need to be scared, and I have designed him like this from the beginning, I'm a little more flexible on it because I don't want to kill my players. I just want them to know that I will.
Yeah, kind of similar for me. Arya did not even have a stat block at all. The child had no stat block. If they attacked her, I was like, I don't know, she dies. Sorry, guys. Like, it's just entirely vibes based on that one. Whereas, like with Gareth, I very specifically made her, I think, a C7 monster.
It was 9.
Oh, she was a C9 monster against one level 7 player. And so I wanted that to be a gap. And the best part about it was that Sloane did almost drop Gareth before Sloane passed out. Like, she used all of her resources to that extent.
I got to see the stat block afterwards. Started with 168 hit points, ended with 20.
It was very, very impressive. And so it kind of depends on the context that I'm designing the villain in, which I know is not always a helpful answer. But like, yeah, sometimes you don't need that stat block. Sometimes that stat block is part of the villain. Just like develop it once you've got that figured out.
I guess also maybe a slightly better answer is pick what you want to prioritize, because I don't always prioritize combat, but when I do, yeah, I make their stat block first.
That's a better answer.
I think we have time for one more question before we truly have to clear out this room. Anyone else? Yes.
How do you convince your players to go act or be proactive against the villain as opposed to react to what the villain does?
So the question was how to make your players be proactive in combating the villain instead of being reactive to what the villain does. It's a tough one.
Sloan has personal experience with
Oh
this.
my god. I found personally, as you've seen from Felix, hatred. Hatred works really well.
Spite.
Yeah, spite. I do play with like a couple of tables, so like with this specific group, hatred is really a good motivator. I have quite a few characters that they're like, I cannot wait for the day we get to kill them. And I'm like, you keep that going because that's what's actually keeping you working towards a goal. So you're not killing them yet. But for like my other table who I ran the hunt for, they are already pretty internally motivated characters. They see a plot hook and they're like, this is how my character would react. I am doing that. And I've been very blessed with that group that they really will just chase things down because every single character has a very strong internal motivation.
Yeah, I would definitely say it takes like knowing your players and their characters to an extent. Like, are their characters the kind of people who are going to be proactive against a villain? If they are, like, what specific things can you pull on that you know these characters like reliably react to? Is it their personal backstory? Is it wronging them personally and making them hate the character? And like as in the case with Felix, is it them doing some sort of like unforgivable atrocity that then makes the party be like, we got to take them down before they do something else? It's like knowing what, or at least having a really solid idea of what your players are interested in and what your characters are likely to do.
And one last piece of advice I have on this, because this is also, I think, the difference between the two groups, is actually helping your players make their characters.